Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. Some bad news for the New York Giants as they lose Andrew Thomas for the remainder of the season. So their star left tackle, really one of the most, if not, I would say the most indispensable player on the team. You could certainly argue in terms of like who's the best player on the team, right? Dexter Lawrence may take that over Andrew Thomas. Even that you could debate. But what is not debatable is really the two biggest and most important positions in the NFL is the quarterback and the left tackle. And one of the bright spots of this 2024 season, and in a season where the Giants, even with everything kind of, even in a best case scenario, in my opinion, while maybe not as far off as the record would indicate, like this isn't a playoff team. There is ways to go to get there. But the offensive line has really been very good and anchored by Andrew Thomas. And he sustained a Lisfranc injury, which is a foot injury. He actually has already undergone surgery to repair it. And Thomas, I think he got hurt in maybe the third quarter against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday Night Football. Did a really nice job going up against Trey Hendrickson. And it's just crazy that he even played on this really foot that was not in good shape for basically a quarter and a half. So the fact that he was even able to do that is crazy. But yeah, he is going to miss the rest of the season. And that is a bleak situation for the Giants when you look at it. And, in terms of week by week, it does sound like there's a good chance Malik Neighbors will return versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's obviously, encouraging and will help the Giants for sure. But the idea that Joshua Ezeudu might be your starting left tackle is pretty scary. If it were me, and I understand you don't want to make multiple moves if you can avoid it. Jermaine Illuminor moving from right tackle to left tackle, that I think is the best thing to do. And maybe that does eventually happen. He does have left tackle experience. He was there a little bit last year with the Raiders, Illuminor that is. And then at that point, take your choice at right tackle between Ezeudu or Evan Neal. And again, this speaks to just the lack of confidence that the Giants have in Evan Neal. The fact that it sounds as if it's going to be Ezeudu. The initial thing that they're going to do is Ezeudu left tackle, and they're just going to keep Illuminor where he was on the right side. It doesn't sound like there's any inclinations at all to have Evan Neal, and I agree with this as well. I mean, it doesn't sound like Evan Neal at left tackle is any option, nor really should it be. I understand that, back in college he played left tackle a bit, but doesn't really matter. If he isn't successful on the right side, I understand that, like, if that is a position that's preferable to him, but you can't even go there. But Ezeudu, who was drafted as a guard, who really has shown out better as a guard, they have moved him over to tackle. He has not looked good there. Like, he basically was responsible for Daniel Jones' neck injury against the Dolphins last season when Ezeudu was left tackle. Like, it is, and for Jones, I think as far as confidence is concerned, it's not going to help that, where at least, on his blind side, he feels like for the most part, all right, I can step into a throw, make a play because I have Andrew Thomas there. The fact that now you're having someone, like Ezeudu, and this isn't meant like to completely shit on him. Like, this is a Giants problem for the alternatives not being as strong. Again, the versatility of Illuminor should allow them to, make that move. I think, and honestly, if health exists, I wouldn't be surprised if that does eventually happen based on poor play. That I think is inevitable. So it's just tough. I mean, Andrew Thomas now, he signed a 5-year contract extension heading into the 2023 season. So now this was year 2. And when it's all said and done, he will have played 16 of 34 games. So less than half of the games played. Last year, he missed 7 games due to a hamstring injury that he sustained week 1 against the Cowboys. And really, by the time he came back, the season was basically over. And so that happened. And so he ends up playing 10 of 17 games last year. And this year it's going to be 6 of 17. So again, 16 of 34 games where, in his first 3 years, he was relatively healthy. Only in year 2 in 2021, he had an ankle injury that caused him to miss 4 games. But that in and of itself, again, like relatively healthy those first 3 years. But now you kind of add that one into the mix. This is a player that I think moving forward, you do have to be concerned as far as him being somewhat injury prone. And, it's not fair to label that against him, but that just kind of is what it is as these injuries are compiling. And again, it's just a shame because this offensive line, which is such an important group, and one where the Giants have really failed for a long time. And this year, despite all of the relatively poor play by the Giants in different regards, the offensive line was one of the few surprising bright spots that seemed like it was on the rise, and they were healthy. I honestly think all 5 of them, I think, were played on 100% of the snaps. I don't think any of them missed a single snap through 6 games. And if there was one player that you couldn't afford to lose out of the 5 of them, it was Andrew Thomas. And honestly, even on the whole team, maybe Daniel Jones, depending on your view of Drew Lock, that may have been the only one that, again, because the quarterback position is the prime position. But also if someone wants to say, hey, Daniel Jones stinks, whatever, hey, you're entitled to that as well. And so therefore, Andrew Thomas, you could argue, was the one injury that you couldn't afford. And it's not like it's just a 4-week injury. It's not like it's, all right, he'll be back at some point. No, he is done for the season. So it reinforces to me, again, I think that, look, could this end up somehow being a blessing in disguise where the Giants have caused the Giants to lose more football games and thus get a better draft pick, and by, in the result of that being that they draft a quarterback? Sure. That could be what happens, but it's so unknown. With 11 games to go, you just don't know. And I feel bad for Thomas as well. It was really he's one of the star left tackles in this league. He probably doesn't get that credit across the National Football League with the Giants kind of being what they've been. But Thomas is really, as good as they come, and one of the best draft picks that the Giants have had in recent memory, 4th overall pick in 2020. So we'll see. I mean, you got Kayvon Thibodeau who's out, 4 to 6 weeks. And by the time he's back, you got to think that the season is kind of basically over at that point with the way it kind of feels. But we'll see. Look, I think the Giants will still stay competitive, but the offense, even with Malik Neighbors returning, and that is important, it's hard to envision this going well. I think Daniel Jones is going to be not having a whole lot of time to throw the football. I think he might get a little bit jittery, honestly, and not trusting what is there at left tackle. So no doubt about it, this is a huge, huge loss for the New York Giants, and just another season that kind of goes, in all likelihood, goes down the tubes very, very quickly. It's not to say that they can't beat the Eagles. I still think they can. And in fact, the Eagles, they lost their left tackle, Jordan Mailata, not season ending, but he won't be playing. So again, I don't know if you feel the full effects immediately, but I think over time, obviously, it's just not going to be good. So again, Andrew Thomas has undergone successful surgery to repair a Lisfranc injury. It's a foot injury. Suffered it in last week's game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he is expected to miss the remainder of the season. Wish Andrew Thomas well in his recovery, and we will see how the Giants will be able to hold up without him.